Hello and welcome to another weekly update. So a couple of things to tell you about first, a couple of kind of blog posts that came out during the week, mostly admin-y things, and it's to do with some speaking slots I've got coming up. It's getting to be that time of year again, everyone's come out of their Christmas hibernation and it's time for some conferences before the summer season. The two new ones that I blogged about this week, so the first is a webinar. So it's an online conference, the European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure Conference webinar. That is happening on the 17th of February. There's a link to go and register for that. So that's coming up a couple of weeks' time. And then coming up a bit later in the year in June, I'm going to be speaking at the European Collaboration Summit, which is June 8th to 10th in Germany, in Wiesbaden. So that's not a conference I've been to before. That'll be my first time going to the European Collaboration Summit, so I am very excited to go there. From everything I've heard, it's a really good conference. It's a fantastic conference, so very excited to be going to that. So thank you very much to those folks for inviting me, and yeah, that should be really, really good fun. So just as a reminder, I do have a bunch of speaking things coming up in the next kind of 3 to 4 months. Everything's on my website. Go to thoughtstuff.co.uk and then click speaking and workshops. There's a link at the top that takes you to the latest update of everything I'm doing that has been confirmed, with registration links as well. So it's a good place to go if you're interested. Okay, other things that are happening. So this is quite important actually. So Microsoft Graph and webhooks, so subscriptions. So not the regular Microsoft Graph. There's a way of using Microsoft Graph called subscriptions or change notifications or webhooks, where you tell Graph that that it should tell you when things happen, and then it calls you back on a URL to tell you that those things have happened. For that process, they are deprecating TLS 1.0 and 1.1. I'm just going to bring up the web page for this. I'm going to put a link to the web page in the notes, obviously, as I normally do, but there's a couple of interesting points I just want to kind of walk you through now that you can go and find in the blog post. So the kind of final turn-off date for this is May the 15th this year, but there are things you need to do beforehand, starting fairly swiftly actually. So starting February the 15th, so sometime next week, I think 8th, yeah, something like that. If you try and create a new subscription on a notification, so the URL that you're providing as your notification URL, if that URL does not support TLS 1.2, starting February the 15th, it will fail. There is a temporary workaround. You need to apply a property called latest supported TLS version and set it to 1.0 or 1.1, and then things will start working again. This is a temporary solution. It will not work after March the 15th, I think, for new subscriptions. And then renewing subscriptions, you've got until, I want to say April the 15th, I think, and then May the 15th, TLS 1.0 and 1.1 will be fully disabled for all outgoing calls. And anything that hasn't been upgraded by that point will stop receiving notifications. So it's a fairly swift timeline. There are things you need to do in the next couple of weeks if you have a notification URL that does not support TLS 1.2. Everything is in the blog post, but that's kind of an important one to make you aware of, because there's actions you need to take probably this week to mitigate against that. There's also a link, by the way, in that blog post to a tool that you can use to tell if your notification URL does support TLS 1.2. Fantastic. What else? The only other things I wanted to say about this week, that was kind of like the main big piece of news I wanted to make sure that you walked away with. There's a really cool blog post I'm just still writing about something new coming to the bot framework. That I'm going to release that in the next couple of days, just as soon as it's ready and it goes live, the code that is, and then I can do the blog post. That's kind of interesting to look out for that as well. And then finally, I'm going to leave you with 2 new podcast episodes. I try and keep on top of there's so much happening in the community at the moment. It's kind of hard to keep on top of everything that's happening, but I do try to. And this is where everyone else now tells me about the things I've missed. But anyway, 2 new podcasts you can enjoy this week. The All About 365 podcast have a new episode out with Sean Wilson from Microsoft, talking about really kind of accelerating enablement, increasing adoption, and onboarding, some of the challenges Sean's seen talking to partners. He works with partners and customers every day, so he sees this stuff on the ground. So if that's interesting to you, go check out that podcast. And then also UCStatus have a new podcast, episode 3, and they're talking all about telephony for teams, resiliency and survivability for teams. So that's kind of interesting as well. So 2 new podcasts you can listen to whilst you're commuting. Or, of course, shameless plug, if you want to listen to this video whilst you're commuting, it is also available as a podcast. You can go to thoughtstuff.co.uk/iTunes or/podcast. You can also find me on Spotify. That's a new thing that I haven't really started making a lot of noise about, but I think I am now live on Spotify. All right, that's everything from me. Have a really good week. Like I say, next week is going to be interesting. So there's that webinar that I blogged about a little while back that is coming up in the week after next. And then, really interesting bot framework post I'm going to be working on. And then a couple of other things as well that may or may not come together next week. We'll see. All right, I think that's everything from me. I should stop talking and let you go and enjoy the rest of your weekend, or whatever it is you're doing today. Have a great one, and I will talk to you again next time.